Welcome to Scramble Game Show. My name is Ife Chang. I'm your host. Today we have a guest who is running for the town councilman of Somerstown. As you know, the summer comes along. Before November, campaign starts. Although it's hot, the candidates are running around, meet everybody, try to get their votes. And here in the studio, of course, we have air conditioning, so it's pretty nice for a candidate to sit down and talk to you about why he is interested in the public office and what they're going to do for you and so forth. So stay tuned, and let's welcome Mr. Bill Faulkner.
Thank you, Dr. Chang, for inviting me.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for coming.
Sure.
This is, as my opening statement, this is a very nice, cool environment. But if you're really on the road, sort of knocking on doors and getting votes, that's pretty
Yes, we're
deadly.
coming to learn that very quickly. Yes, step one, of course, is to collect enough signatures from registered party members so that you can be on the ballot. And myself and my running mates have been doing that quite a bit over the last few weeks.
So you passed that, the first hurdle?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, good. Now, how long have you been living in Somers?
My wife and I moved to Somers 18 years ago, and my daughter was born 16 years ago and change, and she's lived here, of course, her whole life.
I see. So you are, a long time sort of a resident of Somers.
A little bit, yeah.
So what motivated you to sort of thinking about serving the town council?
Well, first of all, I'd like to serve the town in a variety of capacities over the last 18 years or so. Some of the things I've done and really have enjoyed is coaching soccer for 22, 24 plus seasons. I'm also very involved with the Somers Education Foundation, currently the president, and it's a great experience. I love the town. It's wonderful. The people are fantastic, and any opportunity we have to interact with them in those forums or others, I welcome. It's a lot of fun. The people we're engaged with also seem to have a lot of fun, and maybe they learned something along the way too.
Right. Well, as you know, this show is open for public. Any candidate interested in, coming on the show, are welcome. So we have Democrats, we have Republicans, we have Independents, so on. In your case, you are a Republican candidate, right?
Yes, I am, and I've also received the endorsement for the Conservative Party as well.
So you have two-party endorsement.
Correct, yes.
Republican. Now, in the town council, the structure-wise, we repeat this because I tell you, sometimes citizens out there really may not know exactly how the government is organized.
At our local level, yes.
Yeah. So we have a town supervisor. Then there's a council. The council is how many members now?
4.
4?
Plus the town supervisor.
So total 5.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Typically, of course, both parties have candidates run for this council, right? And by and large, because the supervisor was a Republican for at least a dozen years now, right?
Yeah. 15 or 16.
Yeah. So the town of Somers appeared to be a Republican town. But actually, in terms of voter registration, I don't think Republicans is majority, is it?
I believe there is a slight majority, Republicans versus Democrats. But over the years, that's becoming increasingly slight, as I understand it.
Right.
And so it's, approaching 50-50 if we're not there yet.
That's right, yeah. I think, the impression I have, of course, from the county, Westchester County point of view, that Democrats are really overwhelming the Republicans.
I believe that's correct.
And this time, the town supervisor, Mary Beth Murphy, is running for the county clerk.
Indeed, yeah.
That is a major taking.
It is a major undertaking.
Yeah.
First of all, I think she's done a great job, and I want to thank her for her continued service over over a decade.
Yeah.
And we're certainly going to miss her. But she wants to run for county clerk, as you said,
Yeah.
and she has all of my support, and I know she's going to do a great job there as well.
Right. So because of that, of course, we now have candidates running for the town supervisor, right? So on the Republican side is
Rick Morrissey.
Rick Morrissey,
Yes.
and the Democrat side is Robin.
Ms. Robbins, I think,
Yeah,
yes.
Ms. Robbins. Okay. All right. So those are the supervisors. Hopefully they will be on our show as well and talk about it. Now, the council, the 4 seats, usually is staggered to run every 2 years, right?
Correct, yes. So this year, 2 councilman positions are open. One is held currently by Anthony Sirico, my running mate, who is completing the end of his first term, which was a partial term.
Right.
There was an early resignation, so there was an election, and Tony won last year.
Right.
So now he's running for re-election. Rick Morrissey, who was councilman and is currently a councilman, is, like you said, running for town supervisor. So that sort of opens up that seat, and that's the one I'm the candidate for.
Right. Okay. So 2 seats. At this point, so far, we know there were 2 Republican candidates and 2 Democratic candidates?
Right.
Okay, all right. Well, now we got that sort of squared away, and so when the voters go to the booth, they know they should at least vote for 2 councilmen, right?
Very important, yes.
Right. Now, you have the conservative as well as the Republican.
Yes.
So is the Democratic candidate having the independent as well?
That's something at the moment that is, I believe, undecided.
I see.
Because the way the Independence Party will nominate their person is through a series of petitions, which we're also petitioning for, and then it will go to a primary, and which I believe is sometime in September, and then whoever wins that primary will be on the ballot on Election Day in November for the Independence Party.
So there will be a primary then?
I believe so, yes.
And the Republican side, there's no primary,
Right?
right? Because you have 2 candidates for 2 seats.
2 candidates
so
for 2
it's
roles.
Democrat side, right?
Right.
I see. That's interesting. Okay, so there will be a primary for the voters to pay attention to on the independent line.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So have you started your campaign yet?
Yes, we started by going through initially to the Republican Party and presenting to them our case as to basically why we, or in this case, why I would want to be a councilman and get the Republican Party endorsement. That occurred a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Then, as we're quickly learning in this process, the next big step is to collect all of those signatures of party members so that you can turn that into the Board of Elections. That can be verified, and then you indeed can be the official candidate in November.
That officially kicks off your campaign, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So after that, then you expand the sort of interaction to visit as many voters as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Summer's a great time for that.
Right.
The weather's nice, as long as it's not raining.
So before we sort of get into that and
Yep.
the issues and so forth, maybe I'd like to ask you a couple of personal questions so
Sure.
people know you a little better. And so what's your professional sort of job, and what is your past experience you may want to tell the voters?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. My past experience professionally and current experience professionally is mainly in the treasury and banking environment. I was at GE for 12 plus years in their treasury function mostly. Was at PepsiCo and IBM. PepsiCo also in their treasury function. And I'm an in-house expert for treasury and banking functions now with my current company, which is SAP. And along the way, it's been very much a finance sort of driven career with a specialty in treasury and banking. So to answer your question, what might I bring to the table? Well, certainly I think a great amount of fiscal responsibility based on my background in finance. There was a role I had served in. We had a $250 million budget that I was responsible for. And so I'm familiar with the budget cycle and the budget back and forth and that entire process, as well as executing and staying true to the budget that you've set out.
So since we're on the budget, the Somers Town budget, what is the magnitude?
It's about $12 million annually.
Annually. And as my impression that our previous or current supervisor, Mary Beth Murphy, has been fairly conservative, and the budget has been sort of kept quite constant for the last few years, at least, right?
Yes, in fact, I believe Somers is the lowest taxed municipality in Westchester County.
I see. Well, so $12 million, but from a tax roll point of view, our tax rate is still reasonably high, though, right?
I
mean, you say lowest than the county, but it's still, in absolute terms.
In absolute terms, yes, it's $12 million is a lot of money, and that, of course, excludes the school budget, which is in the neighborhood of $82–83 million as well.
Right.
You know, certainly.
So we're talking about
$4,
$100
5,
million.
6 times
Over how many households there in the town of Somers?
There's 18,000 residents in Somers.
So 18,000. So $100 million. Yeah, we can do that math.
You can do the math.
It's just reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth paying attention to.
Right. So in the town, from the past few years, of course, we all concerned about the budget and economy is bad, so we have so-called tax cap and so on. What do you think in the future, when you get elected, you'll be serving at least 2 years, probably then 4 years. What do you see that it's coming, down the pipe?
Well, certainly one of the things my running mates and I will be doing is maintaining a low tax rate. I believe there is a cap somewhat associated with cost of living adjustment or tax to inflation, something nominal like that, and that's what we will be holding to. As we do go around and knock on the doors and talk to folks, a lot of them have said, taxes are too high. My property taxes are too high. I love this town. I love being in it. But you cannot just solve your fiscal problems by raising property taxes on your constituents. There's no end game to that. If you start down that path, it will continue forever. You wind up having some proposals, like in Lewisboro, one of our neighboring towns. There was a proposal by one of their candidates or one of their councilmen or supervisor that wanted to raise property taxes somewhere in the neighborhood of 38%, and then came back and said, okay, we can live with 19%. Whatever those numbers are, they're double digits, and they're absolutely unacceptable. If our cap is 2%, we should be staying within 2%, just like the school budget does.
Yeah. So, well, if we put the sort of the revenue side under the cap, then as far as the town management, then you would have to now worry about the expenditures, right? As far as expenditures, we do hear that the town does require a lot of maintenance, which is, because the austerity and so on has been sort of a tight budget. So how are you going to manage this?
It's going to be like most budget review processes. It's going to be a line-by-line sort of scrub through the numbers. My guess is there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Everyone's going to be trying to protect their interest, and that's a healthy part of the discussion and debate. But in my experience, there's usually some good savings to be found through automation. I've run a couple of project teams where we did exactly that and saved a couple $1 million on 2 or 3 or 4 different instances. We'd have to see. We'd have to get more details, to be honest, so I could be more specific. But again, just to leverage my background in treasury and banking, we've got the receiver of taxes and I believe an assistant. Okay, that's what we need to do to keep the cash in and cash out, cash flows continuing. But in the back of my mind, I have to think there's a better way to do that than manually. There's got to be a better way to do that than hard copy checks. For example, ACH, direct debit. These are things that are no longer very mysterious. Most folks are pretty familiar with it, and that could save a lot of time and maybe expedite the inflow of cash as well. That's one of the things I would like to look at because I see some real opportunity there.
Yeah, certainly. Automation certainly would help. But on one thing, a public, say, government organization is different from a private industry. Is that there's a lot of laws that are sort of mandate certain, way of things being done or certain processes and so forth. So that may or may not be so easily sort of let's say, improved or changed like private industry.
Right.
Okay? Right now, in fact, in this town government, I think isn't the tax receiver position is a elected position?
It is. It is. Yeah. It's an elected
but
position.
But under that position, there will be staff or clerk still working in that organization. So certainly you're right that if you talk about improving the process, introducing automation, that would impact the employment, perhaps,
potentially,
the business.
Potentially,
right?
Or they could be reassigned to do more value-added tasks.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's certainly it's philosophically a area we always should be sort of pay attention to. This: how do you improve efficiency in the operation of the business using technology, using automation? But there's also other things that are unique to certain towns. For example, in Somers, we like our town because we have a very open space, very rural in a sense. We want to balance the growth versus the quality of living. So what's your philosophy on that as going to this council job?
Well, I think recently, or rather recently, there's been at least 2 big residential developments in town. Maybe it wasn't too long ago when Somers Chase went up, and after that was the Preserve over in Baldwin Place. So I think the expansion that has been done has been a win-win for the town as well as the residents of those areas. And at the moment, I don't see a huge amount of demand for any additional development, any additional commercial development in terms of building additional residential homes. At the moment, the occupancy rate is probably comfortably in the 90s. I'd like to see that get to more like 100% for a variety of reasons before we would need to consider that. And the variety of reasons would be it just increases the tax base. And if you increase the tax base, of course, the average or per capita tax rate can stay the same or even go lower, preferably.
Right. Yeah. So you are saying from a housing development point of view, you do not sort of foresee any more private investment in that area. But in terms of the public sort of requirement, don't we have a Somers obligation to build some so-called not necessarily affordable housing or some housing that for lower income or
Yeah, there's quite a few dimensions to that particular issue. I'm coming to learn, and part of it relates to a housing and urban development issue between Westchester County, including Somers and HUD.
Was the federal, yeah.
At the federal level, exactly. And it's a rather undecided and very disputed issue at the moment. HUD is saying, the federal level is saying, you know, Somers, you must put up this number of additional affordable housing units, and the county and the town has replied saying, you know, you don't. We first of all, we have many. We have additional units planned, and that really satisfies any requirement that we think we're responsible and being held to. So I imagine that debate will continue. My role as councilman really is basically a representative. So what I want...
Look out interest for the town, right?
Right. So what the town wants is really what I would be advocating. But the people I've spoken to so far are pretty passionate about saying we do have indeed a great number of affordable housing units, and we're not clear, or we're not certain why we need to build more. So more will develop on this, and we'll certainly listen to all sides. But that's what I've heard up until this point.
Yeah. So this issue, I agree, is not just the Somer issue. Actually, is on the Westchester County level. In fact, the county election, probably this issue is a front runner issue. So watching that, certainly it's what we probably have to do. Now, besides this, then in the town of Somers, what other sort of issues you think it's on people's mind?
The other thing that comes up is a similar issue. There's commercial property as well as residential property in Somers, and the commercial property, in my opinion, has again too many vacancies. There's too many empty storefronts. So I think it would be wonderful to draw and attract additional businesses to those locations in town. Again, having the same benefit in terms of having a broader tax base. How do we do that? Going to be a combination of a lot of things, I'm sure. I would suggest perhaps sitting down with the local Chamber of Commerce and having a roundtable discussion with them. What do you think is preventing business from moving into Somers? What do you think is causing business to close or move out of Somers? And address those at the root cause level.
So that's, of course, you know, compounded probably by the general economy, you know, of the nation. Certainly, this kind of dialogue should be ongoing. Don't the town has commission like that, or has some people that are sort of interfacing with the chamber or business people?
They may well. But I haven't been involved with them just yet. But I'm anxious to get more involved with them.
Yeah, certainly. Just to look at the town center in Somers alone, you see vacancies there. Certainly, that could be filled.
Yep, and there's pluses and minuses to it. Certainly want to, you know, weigh the good with the bad. But for instance, in Somers Town Center, we've got CVS as a great anchor tenant. They seem to be doing much better than the old Christides that was there that seemed to, quite frankly, struggle. So that's brought in some new businesses. You've got Aunt B's, you've got Summerfields, which has been there for quite a while. So there's a great base to build on. Let's just figure out what we can do to indeed build on it.
Right. This town center itself is fairly new. It's not that, you know, it's old. It's pretty new. I think the general economy certainly is probably the more fundamental factor. As the economy, you know, moves sort of forward, I would expect that we will have some, you know, pickup. But certainly the leadership in the town government should be more proactive. I mean, that certainly is a right approach. Now, besides this commercial property, and there's another issue I think maybe you could also address a bit, is that the last few years particularly, we often have this sort of a weather, effect that is sort of causing people's discomfort. That is, namely, storms and winter, that sort of either knock out the electricity for few days or a week, as
Yes.
long as like 15 days.
Yes.
And that certainly is it's an issue. So what do you think town should be doing?
Well, preventative maintenance might be a good thing to do there. And over the years, particularly many years ago, and it certainly has gotten better over the last few years, my particular neighborhood, for whatever reason, seemed to be the first one to get knocked out of power.
Right.
So that, all the inconvenience that goes along with that, I'm personally very sensitive to. And so, over time, like most people, we decided we needed to get a generator just in case.
Right.
I'd rather not need one.
Okay. Well, I got the signal from the director that time's running out.
Okay, we got
So,
the 2-minute warning.
Yeah, well, I think we'll
So work with
welcome
the
you
power
back
companies.
again.
What
Yeah.
really knocks out the power
And
is taking
I'll
down
save
the
a
trees
few minutes for you to
that are
speak
near
to
the
that
lines.
camera,
Okay.
to the voters.
Okay.
Why do you want them to vote for you? Come on, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I would like people to vote for me is because I love Somers. It's my hometown. It's the town that my wife and I first bought our one and only home in. It's the only home my daughter's ever known, and it's just been absolutely wonderful. The friends we've made along the way, the friendships, the organizations we've been involved with, have all been tremendously mutually beneficial, and we look forward to growing old here.
Great. That's very good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Dr.
we'll
Chang.
invite you again when
Okay.
the time progresses.
All right.
So thank you for watching.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have a
That's
great
very
day.
good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah, it will not completely off until this rolling.